Saudi Arabia has asked the United States to show restraint in responding to attacks by Yemen's Houthis against ships in the Red Sea. Two sources familiar with Saudi thinking said, as Riyadh seeks to contain spillover from the Hamas-Israel war. The Iran-aligned Houthis have waded into the conflict that has spread around the Middle East since war erupted on October 7th, attacking vessels in vital shipping lanes and firing drones and missiles at Israel itself. The group, which rules much of Yemen, says its attacks are a show of support for the Palestinians and has vowed they will continue until Israel stops its offensive on the Gaza Strip, more than 1,000 miles from their seat of power in Sana'a. The Houthis are one of several groups in the Iran-aligned Axis of Resistance, which have been attacking Israeli and U.S. targets since the start of the conflict on October 7th, when their Palestinian ally Hamas sparked the war by attacking Israel. Their role has added to the conflict's regional risks, threatening sea lanes through which much of the world's oil is shipped, and worrying states on the Red Sea as Houthi rockets and drones fly toward Israel. Riyadh, the world's top oil exporter, has watched with alarm as Houthi missiles have been fired over its territory. With the Houthis stepping up attacks on shipping over the past weeks, two sources familiar with Saudi thinking said Riyadh's message of restraint to Washington aimed to avoid further escalation. Riyadh was so pleased with the way the United States was handling the situation. As Saudi Arabia presses for a ceasefire to halt what it has called a barbaric war in Gaza, its diplomacy reflects a wider policy aimed at promoting regional stability after years of confrontation with Iran and its allies. Focused on expanding and diversifying the Saudi economy, Riyadh this year normalized ties with Tehran and is seeking to exit the war it has been waging with the Houthis in Yemen for nearly 9 years. Saudi Arabia was seeking to advance the Yemen peace process, even as war rages in Gaza, worrying it could be derailed. Yemen has enjoyed more than a year of relative calm amid direct peace talks between Saudi and Houthi officials. The Houthi attacks during the Hamas-Israel war have elevated their profile in the Iran-aligned camp, which also includes Hamas, Lebanon's Hezbollah, and Iran-backed militias in Iraq. The Houthis have emerged as a major military force in the Arabian Peninsula, with tens of thousands of fighters and a huge arsenal of ballistic missiles and armed drones. Senior sources in the Iran-aligned camp told Reuters the Houthi attacks were part of an effort to put pressure on Washington to get Israel to halt the Gaza offensive, a goal that Iran shares with Saudi Arabia and other countries in the region. One of the sources, who is based in Tehran, said Houthi representatives had discussed their attacks with Iranian officials during a meeting in Tehran in November, agreeing to carry out actions in a controlled way that would help force an end to the Gaza war. The United States and Britain condemned the attacks on shipping, blaming Iran for its role in supporting the Houthis. Tehran says its allies make their decisions independently. In one of the latest incidents, 3 commercial vessels came under attack in international waters on Sunday. The Houthis said they had fired at what they said were 2 Israeli vessels. Israel denied any link to the ships. A U.S. Navy destroyer, the Carney, shot down 3 drones as it answered distress calls from the vessels, which the U.S. military said were connected to 14 separate nations. The Pentagon said on Monday that Carney had taken action as a drone was headed in its direction, but that it could not assess if the warship was the intended target. An Iranian diplomat said Tehran and Washington had exchanged messages through intermediaries about Houthi attacks since the start of the Hamas-Israel war. The diplomat, who was involved in exchanging the messages, said both called for restraint.